I would say that the Persian Gulf or the GCC states are split kind of in half, right? So you have a very sort of gung-ho UAE that is leading the charge to hit Iran alongside the Americans and the Israelis. They would like a continuation of the war until Iran capitulates or collapses. With them, I think Kuwait is with them, and Bahrain, that has kind of peeled away a little bit from the Saudis and moved more into the UAE sphere of thinking. And then on the other side, you have the Qataris who said early on, okay, we're out. And then you have Oman, which has been a mediating country and respected for its role in lots of mediations. Oman is working with the Iranians to create the blueprint of how to administer this new Strait of Hormuz paradigm, how to charge for it, how to administer, who to charge, and when. So Oman is already there. And then you have Saudi Arabia, which is probably the most crucial country. The Saudis have stayed relatively quiet. They have expressed great anger at their sites being targeted, but their sites haven't been targeted as much as Emirati sites, for instance, right? Who were clearly encouraging the U.S. attacks on Iran. The Saudis, before this war started, had, I think, way more than the antagonism they would have felt for Iranians. This Saudi leadership has the UAE in its sights, okay? Particularly the president of the UAE, Abu Dhabi, Mohammed bin Zayed. There is a colossal and very open conflict happening between these two leading Gulf countries.
Right? Why is that? What is their conflict?
So they both went into Yemen together in 2015. They launched a war in Yemen, right? The UAE at some point said, we're out, but they didn't go out. They entirely moved to the south of the country, in which they proceeded to colonize those areas and set up ports. If we had a map, I could show you far better why this works, They set up ports. Across from Yemen is Somaliland, right? Which nobody recognizes except Israel. All right. Israel has just recognized Somaliland, the first country to do so. The UAE was the driver of the Abraham's Accords. All right. And it has normalized with Israel far more than any country in the history of normalization, more than Egypt, more than Jordan, etc. Right? They are literally in bed with the Israelis. They want all Muslim Brotherhood wiped out. They're good with the Israeli agenda. Saudi Arabia. The UAE is also backing the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces in Sudan, who are basically terror militants. Okay, just absolutely genociding people. Right? The Saudis came in and got Trump to declare a ceasefire in Sudan. The UAE went in and tried to take over all of the south of Sudan, even areas that were mostly Saudi dominated, right? And then when Israel recognized Somaliland, this all, I think, came together. It had been boiling for many years for Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, but this was it. They could see, so if you look at a map, Saudi Arabia spans from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea. The Emiratis are on the corner of the Persian Gulf. They don't have any land route to Europe, through Saudi Arabia blocks every country. But Saudi Arabia would want to build, it's all about roots in the way. The global fight is about roots. Everyone got crazy once BRI was announced by the Chinese, right? The Emiratis wanted to create the ports. They would go along from the Persian Gulf into the Arabian Sea, up through the Red Sea, right? Through Israel to Europe. And the Israelis were good with this. Somaliland is across from Yemen, which means in the Red Sea. It is where the Israelis and Emiratis can block the Saudis from here, and they can block them from the Persian Gulf. Okay, it got to be a very, very ugly geopolitical thing, and it came out into the open. A lot of these inner GCC fights are kept quiet. My brotherly nation, that kind of thing. This one, and it happened right before the Iran war. Saudi Arabia sat quietly for a while. UAE was being very mouthy and was getting hammered by the Iranians, right? In the end, if Dubai doesn't have its towers, if the UAE doesn't seem like a secure financial hub, everyone will move to Riyadh and Jeddah. The Saudis have much to gain from this. So there's a lot of nuance.
There are layers, layers upon layers of interests, of conflicts, and there's just so much going on.